welcome to the Talk and Smash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hetherington. I'm joined today by Mr. Flint Lane, the commissioner and founder of Major League Table Tennis. Somebody who I've known for a while, but through Major League Table Tennis, I think we've gotten much friendlier with each other through our trash talk and our friendly matches at the Major League matches. And also the founder of both Princeton Pong and Naples Pong as well. Thanks for joining me, Flint. We're going to have a good chat about what has rapidly become one of my favorite topics in table tennis, which is your league, Major League Table Tennis.
Thank you, Matt. We knew each other from across the table, and never did I know about all of your exploits in the world of table tennis, from announcing to playing to medaling in Kiwi competitions and things like that. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you, and I think we're all doing our part to try to advance the sport we love.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the first place to start is, in the history of table tennis in the US, professional table tennis league has probably been the number one topic of conversation. And there have been so many, you must have heard dozens and dozens of conversations about the table tennis needing a professional league in the US, but nothing has ever really been tried. Nothing has ever really come to fruition or been actioned. And you were the person who finally took that extra step that was needed to say, let's start somewhere. Let's just put our foot in and get something going. What does it take to make that step, knowing how much is involved, and to say, let's get started, let's see? I mean, and you weren't just trying in the beginning, like you made a serious effort. First season was amazing.
Yeah, I think if you asked the table tennis community, how many times has a pro table tennis league been tried in this country, you're going to get a lot of different answers. So one of my first steps before doing Major League Table Tennis was actually to do some market research and say, okay, has this been tried? And if it has, why didn't it work? And I was amazed that so many people would tell me, yeah, it's been tried, it didn't work. I'm like, really? Which one? And nobody could actually give me the example of when it was tried. There were people who wrote things down on paper, but never did it. There was that. So it was a relatively quick process, less than 2 weeks, I'd say, to determine, okay, nobody's actually really given this a go. But then I started talking to a lot of people, both inside of table tennis, but in lots of other sports, the National Hockey League, Major League Soccer, pickleball, cornhole, lacrosse, about what attributes are required to make a successful sports league. The people in table tennis were generally wildly pessimistic. They would say things like, oh, this isn't going to work because the clubs aren't going to support it. I'm like, well, why do we need the clubs to support it? It doesn't have to be a club-based league. Well, it's not going to work because the players don't want to travel. I'm like, yeah, I think they would travel if they were paid appropriately for their services. So I heard a lot of reasons that just didn't make any sense. And a lot of times those reasons are coming from people who haven't built businesses in the past, right? But then if you look at these other pro sports leagues, whether it's the big ones, hockey, basketball, football, baseball, or the little ones, the attributes are all over the place with table tennis. It is fan friendly. We all understand it in America because we likely played in our basement or at a rec center, unlike some of the newer sports like cricket and rugby, which I still struggle to understand. It is not wildly expensive to put on. We don't need a giant venue to put on table tennis.
Right.
It's easy to get players, right? Because there's lots of people at the high end of table tennis that would love to play in a pro league. So it didn't take me long to say, yeah, this is worth going after.
What kind of process did it take for you to actually go from having those discussions to establishing it into what it was in season one? I mean, most people kind of got introduced, they heard about Major League Table Tennis, and then they got into it as the league started. What kind of steps did you have to go through before starting the league? Like the build up to that must have been pretty hectic in some regards.
I would say there's two approaches to starting things. Like if you were to ask me to build a house, I would have no idea on even where to begin on that. And there are lots of people that know how to build homes, and they have blueprints and architects and
Mm,
zoning and all sorts of stuff and materials. Um, and you can plan everything down to the most minute detail, and you should if you're going to build a house because you know what the end product is going to look like. It was a little different here because we actually didn't know what the end product was going to look like. So I didn't stress about it. I'm like, I don't particularly care what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years. I don't really mean that, but there's no way I'm going to be able to figure that out. So a better approach is let's just start stacking wins. And we call it building
right.
brick by brick. Okay, we need a name. We need a URL. We need an operations person. We need a streaming partner. We need athletes. We need jerseys. And you stack up 1,000 wins like that, the next thing you know, you've got a pro sports league. But you can't be daunted by the sheer magnitude of it, because then you'll be frozen. You just got to start stacking
Right.
wins.
Do you think that's something that prevented people from doing it in the past? Was kind of them imagining the magnitude of what it should be and then just not being able to start?
I don't know. I think there could be a lot of different things. So different people had different visions of what a pro league would look like. Some people thought it
Mm,
was, hey, let's just run it in one city. Um, I think I was in the perfect place and time in my life to have a better chance at doing this. I had just exited from a software company that I had started 20 years ago. I
mm.
was unsuccessful at retirement. I lasted like 3 weeks. I was awful at it. I am wildly passionate about table tennis, as you know. So uh, it was sort of like the right place, right time for me. Others could have done it, much like others build other pro sports leagues, but I think the timing was just perfect for me.
So starting off with the first season, obviously, when the first season was announced, me personally, I was obviously invested, right? Definitely wanted this to work. I was really surprised with the number of foreign players that came into this in season one. That was like the one thing that really struck me of like, there's actually a legitimate interest in this. Because I kind of anticipated, hey, first season's probably going to be really domesticated. It'll build up from there. So that was kind of my moment where I was like, there's a real interest in this being in the US. Um, what were your expectations going into season one? I mean, you kind of talked about how you were just going to kind of go with the flow a little bit. Did you have expectations? Were you surprised by a lot of things that happened in season one? And now that you've gotten one season under the belt, how is your approach changing towards season two?
So I would say I was pleasantly surprised, but not really. Um, we knew if we were going to be taken seriously as a pro league, we needed to have great talent. And unfortunately,
Mm,
there's just not enough great talent in America. So that was a deliberate decision very early on that, like, how do we spread the word further? So we hired two Major League Table Tennis ambassadors, Damian Provost and Daniel Gonzalez, both great international players that play overseas and say, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. We'd love for you to help us with this. And you look at Damien, like, why is France the second biggest country in our league after the US? Predominantly
mm.
because of Damien.
Yeah.
Daniel has done an amazing job of getting international athletes, spreading the word around WTT about what we're up to. So no, I'm not terribly surprised, but you were a bit of a doubter about that specific issue because you hadn't seen
Mm,
us do it, which makes a ton of sense. There are people doubters about can you come up with an innovative team format? Are you going to be able to sell teams? Are you going to be able to get advertisers? And that actually fuels me. I love doubters. I love proving people
right.
wrong.
Yeah.
The final thing I'll say on this is there's a guy in my club who I play with quite regularly. He's about my level. Um, and I told him I was starting this league, and he's like, oh, that's never going to work. I'm like, dude, I haven't told you anything yet. Like, can you give me a minute here? Like, we're just starting. And I stick it to him every time. I'm like, hey, how do you think now? He's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I love
Nice.
proving people wrong.
I think that's a good mentality to have in this specific area. Um, so you mentioned the format. Obviously, Major League Table Tennis. completely different from any other league format. It's very kind of fast paced. There's a lot of changes of players. Where did you get the inspiration from? I mean, obviously you were talking to all these different leagues. What inspired this format, and how important do you think this format has been in showcasing Major League for what it is, and kind of getting it out there to spectators more?
So I think the format is really important, but that alone is not enough, obviously, right? It needs to be a great production for fans who are coming in person. There needs to be a great atmosphere. There needs to be a fan zone. So there's a lot that goes into that. But if we had a crappy format, that would be bad. So one of the first decisions we made was around the length of the matches. And we got some good advice from some advisors at Legends who we work with. It says one of the big problems with some sports like tennis, beach volleyball, is the unknown duration of the matches, right? It's tough to take a 40-minute slot on TV or a 2-hour slot, depending on how long the match goes. So that was a easy thing to solve, which was, okay, we're just going to play 3 games of singles and 4 singles matches. So it'll be 12 games. We can estimate those will be 6 to 8 minutes, but best of 3, best of 5, best of 7 leads to variable lengths, which is terrible for television. And ultimately, we're going to have a big TV contract. We want to give them a roughly 2-hour time slot, which is sort of optimal for pro sports. But we're still stuck with predominantly an individual sport, singles and doubles, right? So yeah, doubles is 2 people, but that's not a team sport. So then I started looking for who has innovated around team sports to make it compelling. And the best example of this, in my opinion, is the Ryder Cup. If you're not familiar, or listeners are not familiar, the Ryder Cup pits countries against countries in a golf tournament, US against Europe. And lots of different variations of what they're playing. At the end, they have singles, and each counts as a point. But one of the events is called foursomes. And foursomes is an alternative shot format where I drive the ball, you hit the second ball, I hit the third ball, and you're really reliant on your partner. And it is really interesting. Like, they have to actually debate which ball they're going to use because they like each player likes a different kind of ball.
Like different.
And if I drive a ball, I want to leave it 120 out because that's what I like to hit, but my partner might like it 130 out.
Right.
I'm like, ooh, how can we do some kind of alternate shot format? And that's where we innovated the Golden Game, which we think is fantastic, as do the fans, where each player serves twice, receives twice, they hop off. It's kind of like tag team wrestling. And some of the insiders, one of our partners, Johnny Poli, he's like, maybe this should be just the Golden Game. I'm like, I don't think we're ready for just that. Yeah, but the Golden Game has been really a lot of fun, and I think has made a big difference in the acceptance of Major League Table Tennis.
Yeah. That for me, actually going back after doing commentary for Major League and watching the Olympic trials, it was so challenging for me. And it's like, this is the US Olympic trial. This is like an important event. I really want to, get invested in it, but it just felt so slow. And I was like, man, this is what Major League has done. It's changed my mindset of like, it does feel more team oriented, and there's so much more emotional investment.
What did you think of so most table tennis purists hated the idea of a Golden Game. What's this? And they're like, this isn't like a pure way to do table tennis. And my attitude was like, how's that pure way doing for us in America so far, right? That pure way is not leading to table tennis being successful in America. And it's a bit of a gimmick. So is a shootout a gimmick in soccer/football, right? Is overtime a gimmick? Baseball just put a runner on second base in extra innings. Is that a gimmick? No, sports are innovating all the time to give a better product to the audience. That's who we exist to serve, the fans, right? And if we're giving them something that's not enjoyable, that's on us. That's not on them.
Yeah, no, I was, from the beginning, that was really one area that I was like, this is going to be interesting. Like, I'm kind of in the middle. Obviously, table tennis community can be difficult at the best of times. They generally complain that the sport's not improving, but if you suggest anything that has any kind of change, they're against it immediately. So it's like, how do we change the sport without changing the sport? It's impossible. So you just get stuck in this stalemate for years on end of trying to make things better without changing anything. But one of the things that I thought of when I was thinking about the Golden Game, obviously with JOOLA doing pickleball, I've watched like Dream Breakers and that kind of stuff with Major League Pickleball. But the first thing that I immediately thought of is there used to be a couple of exhibition events. One was, I think they did Korea versus the world, and maybe they did China versus the world as well. But Korea versus the world was genuinely one of the most entertaining exhibitions I've ever seen. It was the Korean national team against Krayenga, Schlager, Timo Boll, and Wang Hao. And they could literally just call a timeout at any point and swap. And you just had these really funny dynamics of like, I think it was in 2004. So it was kind of right after Schlager had won the world championships. And he goes in, and then whoever he was playing timed out, and they called in Ju Se-hyuk. And straight away, Schlager timed out, and he was like, nope. He was like, I'm not playing him again, and just goes back off to the bench. And there were all these little moments that were really funny. And they literally ended up with, once somebody started lobbing, the whole team just came on, and there were 4 of them alternating lobs. And I was like, that is different, but it's very, very team oriented. So yeah, I was interested in the Golden Game. It's been great.
I think so. I spent my career in the software space where rapid iteration is the only way to succeed. So what you sold last year isn't going to work this year. You're always innovating. And frankly, I am not a long-time table tennis person. Like, I like the sport and everything, but your knowledge of table tennis history is far better than mine. And that has actually served me well because I'm not stuck in the box with these certain ideas. And I'm happy to crib ideas from anybody, right? If you look, like, so we had a combine, which was like a tryout, stole it from football. We had a lottery for our draft, stole it from basketball. If you look at the NFL, the American Football League, they just stole the way kickoffs are being done. New whole system this year from the XFL, right? So the best ideas, I'm happy to take best ideas from anybody. Some ideas, like the Golden Game, we invented, but a lot of our ideas we just took from other sports that were successful.
Yeah. And then you're literally taking the best of innovation and combining it into hopefully what you think is a successful model. So makes sense.
Yeah, and we don't always get it right. And when we don't get it right, it's great. It's okay to fail as long as you fail fast. Some things don't work. Yeah. We pivot, we change our mind, we do something better.
Is there anything in your mind that kind of stood out from season 1 that you thought this is an area that maybe didn't work as well that you wanted to improve?
Yeah. So we've made some rule changes in season 2 to improve certain aspects. Nothing revolutionary except for one, which was women must play singles. So we are a co-ed sport, and we love that we're co-ed, and we have women face off and men in the Golden Game, and it's wildly entertaining. But because of our singles doubles format, the women were often playing just doubles, even though statistically the teams did better when the women played singles and they used men in doubles. It was a bad look for our sport that the women were always relegated to playing doubles. So in season 2, women are playing singles and must play singles. Now, they may play other women, but they also may play other men. The coaches will make those strategic decisions when they decide the lineups. And at some point, I hope that there'll be more women on each team. But, much like we couldn't source enough athletes in America, there was just not enough women at the highest level for our first 2 seasons. But yeah, that was one we got wrong.
Yeah, I did a podcast with Matilda. That was my last podcast while she was in Sweden, and she's been practicing a lot. So she was over in Sweden for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. So she's ready to take a deep dive into singles.
How great is it that these great players who retired have come out of retirement, are working their butts off to get there? Like Matilda was like top 20 in the world, right?
Yeah.
And, the biggest success story of our league in season 1 was a player I had never heard of, Hong Lin, right? She was a retired player, came out of retirement for Major League Table Tennis, was the top doubles player, like super high in the power rankings, and just won U.S. Nationals. Like, there's
Yeah.
like, this is what she told me. This is not my words. Like, she's not winning U.S. Nationals if she doesn't come out of retirement for Major League Table
Yeah.
Tennis. That's pretty. That's
Yeah.
pretty damn cool.
Yeah. And that just kind of speaks to the league as being a catalyst to keep players in the game. Like this is the missing link of, we know why our table tennis players quit. We know why they
Yeah.
stop playing. They stop playing because there's nothing to keep them in the game. So being able to bring players back out of retirement, that kind of shows a pathway forward where maybe we can stop the retirements from happening, which would make a huge difference. And
Yeah,
it already
I remember.
has.
So, as you know, I own two clubs. Princeton Pong is just about 10 years old now. And when we opened it, we did a little grand opening ceremony, and we had two ladies from Princeton come over to play against David Zhuang and his partner. And one of them was Ariel Singh. And she was an Olympian, fantastic player, went on to Princeton, and then sort of disappeared from the table tennis world. Why?
Yeah.
Because there was nothing to keep her there, right? How sad is that? This person who's worked so hard at the sport. You know, our best male athlete at this point lives in Germany, Kanak Ja, because that's where he gets pro table tennis.
That's where he has to go. Yeah.
We can do better.
Yeah. Okay. Usually at this point, I do a little break segment. I'm keeping this one table tennis related. So this is your golden game. I've decided to put some pressure on you, and given that in the golden, usually the golden point is kind of down to 1 point. I decided that you would have to. It's kind of like a word association game. I'm gonna name somebody from Major League Table Tennis. I have a list of players, coaches, staff, and you have to give me one word to describe that person or individual. Are you ready? Take a deep breath.
I am so nervous I'm going to mess this up.
That's okay. I've done some pretty wild break segments. Okay.
So I get one word.
You have to pick one word to best describe this person, and as quickly as possible. So the first person is Enzo Angles.
Tenacious.
Very fitting. I like that. Emily Tan.
Joyous. The way she plays the sport, like she's got so much joy playing. It's so much fun.
I agree with that. Mimi Bosica.
Challenging. And what I mean by challenging in a great way.
Yeah.
So Mimi works for Major League Table Tennis as one of our star employees. And there's a great line in business. If you want something done, give it to a busy person. And I keep giving stuff to Mimi to do, and she never runs out of capacity. And she's juggling a young child, Leo, and she's got a busy life. But you have to, like, she just challenges everything. If we had like a dozen Mimi Boscos, we'd be even better.
Oh yeah, I did very much enjoy your little head-to-head at the Ocho event. It was great.
Yes, so I'm currently 1-for-1 in playing against her. I caught her on a bad day because she's much better than me, and I'm 1-0 in coaching against her at the Ocho. So I'm never competing against her again.
I love it. That's now on the record. I can cut that out and tag her in it. The next one, I've gone over to the commentary staff, Evan Lepler.
I would say fearless is a good word for Evan. So Evan came into table tennis not knowing a darn thing about our sport and quickly ramped up on our sport and the things to say, and does such an amazing job at broadcasting our events. And of course, he's got you and Sean to help out. But the guy, like, he tracks his own stats. He's not afraid of
Yeah.
any challenge. So I like the word fearless for Evan.
I like that as well. I think there is no question that Evan is afraid of asking, which has been really great. I've very much enjoyed the commentary dynamic. Obviously, I'd done commentary with a lot of different people, but I think as somebody who's new into the sport, um, the speed that he's adapted has been among the best I've ever seen. I've done a combination of two individuals here. I've grouped them together. I've put Roger and Andre together, who I think have been a power duo of Major League.
Yeah, helpful is the word that immediately jumps to mind. Like, those two will do anything to help our leagues succeed. Like, anything. Roger and Andre are co-owners of the Princeton Revolution with Dima Ovtcharov, as you know. But Andre runs a graphic design firm, and all of our logos, a lot of our creative, a lot of the graphics on our website are done by his firm, and he charges us like cost almost to do that. Roger is busy ferrying players around. Like, he's a busy
Yeah.
executive at a medical company, and he's busy like driving athletes around. Like, those guys will do anything to make Major League Table Tennis successful. I love them both.
The next person is someone who had a great season, Matthias Harbison.
Coach of the Princeton Revolution. I'm struggling to come up with exactly just one word. I'll go with motivated. So when we were interviewing coaches for the season, we cast a net throughout the U.S., and there were people who know how to do individual coaching, but our coaches in Major League Table Tennis are part GM, part coach, part therapist. And Matthias applied for the job, and hadn't ever met Matthias, and he was so prepared for that interview. And he's like, "I'll do anything to become a coach in Major League Table Tennis." That's how much he believed in it. Um, and the kind of people I've been fortunate to meet in our first year has just been amazing, and Matthias is certainly one of them.
Okay, and the last person is Matthew DeSantalan.
The Chopper. Um, uh, yeah, it's the first thing that comes in mind. The chopper, you know where that comes from? That's like an Arnold line, getting the chopper.
Yeah, get to the chopper.
But he is one of the most fun people to watch in the league, because he'll chop you down, and all of a sudden run up to the table and loop
Yeah,
a backhand hard down the line. He is must see TV. Like, you do not want to turn your head around when he's playing.
yeah. I'd seen him play before. He played in the team tournament in 2017, I think. So I knew his name, but I hadn't really seen him play a lot of matches until Major League. And the thing that surprises me the most is he's he's strong. He's like big and bulky and like muscly, but he's so nimble. I've
Yeah.
never seen anybody like that tall and that built move so fast in my life. Um, I did my Golden Point challenge with him, and he literally was on the floor. And I tried to drop shot him, and it only bounced once. And I was like, he's on the floor. I can get away with it. No, he was on the floor for maybe half a second. Um, yeah, he was definitely one of my favorite players to watch as well. It's
Yeah,
great to see
I'm always
some
amazed. I'm always
defense.
amazed at choppers. Like, at what point in your life did you decide I'm going to become a chopper? Um, there was a moment, like, I occasionally will mess around with you and others, and I try to chop, and I'm not particularly good at it. But, like, it is hard to be a chopper. Like, you got to work
It's
so hard to
insanely
be
hard.
good at that style.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not enough of a physical athlete to take on that gauntlet. So who knows? Maybe when I'm 70 or 80 and I've got the standing in one spot and chopping down. Um, good. That was good. I think you summed those up pretty perfectly. Um, you handled that a lot easier than you made out in the beginning. All right, I've got a couple more little topics to go. So with Major League, if you look a little bit longer term now, and you think about development, obviously you've brought in some new things for season two. What are some of the things that you would like to see if you look forward to, seasons 3, 4, 5 into the future of the league? What are the big focus points for Major League Table Tennis to continue as a league and to continue innovating and improving that you see?
One of the ideas I stole from the software world is something called MVP, which is minimal viable product. So what you do is you build something as small as possible to prove that it works before you
Mm,
invest in all the other things for the future. And that was what season was. It was 8 teams, 8 athletes per team, 8 to 12 cities, and we proved, yeah, fans loved it, athletes loved it. We had a couple of streaming deals that worked. If you think long term, there'll be expansion in season 3, and I hope to get to 24, 30 teams in the next 5 years. Um, we're rolling out a junior program called minor league table tennis because we
mm-hmm.
think we think the sport needs more grassroots help. We hope to lobby with NCAA to make this a varsity sport at the NCAA level. So if we're going to fix table tennis in America, there's a lot to do. If we focus just on major league table tennis, certainly there's a lot more we want. We want TV contracts, right? We want to be on prime time with our championship and have multi-millions of people tuning in. Um, Maybe there are satellite leagues in other countries. So we keep a list. We actually call it our 1% list of all the things that will make us 1% better. We can't get to them right away. Like, we are bandwidth constrained. So occasionally we'll invite something off of the list and say, okay, we're going to tackle that in this season. But my hope is that every team will have a home venue that they play at, right? So the Princeton Revolution will have their home court, and they're playing, I don't know, 50 home matches per year. So,
That would be
if you
pretty
look at the
cool.
Yankees, they play 81 games, and then they go on the road. So why can't
Mm.
our sport do something like that? You got to be able to dream.
And in that light, kind of talking about venues as well. What is your thought on is your vision to kind of go to bigger venues? Is it to kind of find homes in table tennis clubs that already exist? Is it to have new facilities that are the home courts? Are you trying to go for like big stadium viewership here? Is that your long term goal, or do you want to really build this out as like, okay, this is the home club? As you know what I mean in terms of like, do we want to focus on a smaller home venue, or do you want to go big time, like get us into like, I don't know, Madison Square Garden or something crazy like that?
Yeah, so I was at the Olympics for a week and got to see some table tennis, and there were 4 tables set up, and there was probably 8,000 people in this venue. It was like a pop-up venue. It was all temporary stands. And I will tell you that it did not work on the far table for me sitting on the
Mm,
other end. So I think our
yeah.
sport is too small to work at Madison Square Garden. Could we sell all those tickets someday? Yeah, that'd be wonderful. But I don't think that works. It's just too tough to see. So I think we probably top out at 5,000 to 7,500 fans, and as long as
Mm.
it's tightly orchestrated around the table. Um, so no, my goal is not to be in Madison Square Garden or Yankee Stadium because I don't think that will be a great product for the fans to watch.
Did you kind of draw any ideas from the World Championships of ping pong? Because I know that was a for like people who were thinking about how table tennis should be presented, like having that one court in Alexandria Palace in the UK was, they had some pretty good ideas around that. Is that kind of what you envision a little bit more to be like more intimate?
Yeah, yeah, yes and no. So I've been to several team-based tournaments. I've been to the U.S. Open. I've been to JOOLA teams, and having a mile-long view of 100 tables, like, that's fun for participants, is awful for a crowd, right?
Yeah.
So I believe at YOLA teams they sell tickets for people to come in and watch. It's not something they do a lot
No,
of because it's not
no.
organized for that. Um,
Yeah.
and having 2 matches going simultaneously, that works in tennis. Like, the U.S. Open, they've got 20 courts because they've got to get the action going. But what really
Mm.
draws the crowd is when people are in Arthur Ashe for some of the headliners. So, um, the Arthur Ashe Stadium at US Open in Queens, there's the tennis court and the crowd starts right at there. Like when you put it on a basketball court, the stands are still too far away. So I
Yeah.
would love it if teams had their own venues where there is a table tennis court with the barriers, and then the fans are all right there in grandstands,
Right.
so they don't have to go another 40 feet to see.
Yeah.
The closer we can get, the more packed we can get, the better.
Yeah. I agree with that. Okay. The last question. What would be the pinnacle for you? What would be like the absolute pinnacle for you? Is there a player or some players that you would love to have playing Major League? Is there a venue that you'd love to have playing in? What are the peak goals for you where you'll be like, okay, at this moment, Major League Table Tennis has made it. We're on the map. This is like I'm satisfied.
So I can't answer that question about peak and pinnacle because that feels like we've achieved it and there's no getting better than that. What I can say there,
That's fair.
it is, I'll say a few things that really drive me in my career. It's not about the goal, it's about the journey, right? So as long as this journey is fulfilling for the people on the journey with me, me, my team, the commentators, the players, the coaches, like I want this journey to be enjoyable. I want people who work at Major League Table Tennis to say, this is the best job I've ever had. I want the players who play to say, this is the best league I've ever played in. So the journey is far more important than the destination to me. That said, I can answer some things that would be wildly delightful to me. A primetime spot on ESPN for our championship. When Ma Long signs in our league. When we have 30 teams spread throughout North America. When we have a thriving youth-based league like Little League Baseball, where they just had their Little League championships in Pennsylvania, it's on network TV. Why does table tennis not have that kind of orchestration? So there are a lot of goals. I wouldn't call them pinnacles, but things that would bring me lots of joy. But ultimately, it comes back to the journey's got to be fun. If we're on this journey together and we're not having a blast, why are we even doing it?
Yeah. Perfect. I think that's a really good sentiment, and I can pretty confidently say that throughout season one, I think everybody who was involved has had a really good time, and the enthusiasm among the players and the coaches and us on the commentary team and the staff for season two has really been building up. So, yeah.
One of the best players we've signed so far is Liam Pitchford, as you know, and the only reason Liam Pitchford joined our league is because his friend David Macbeth told him he was having a great time playing in our league. So our players are our best advocates. They're spreading the word about how much fun it is to play in the league. Our fans are our best advocates. We ask our fans, how good of a time did you have, and would you recommend Major League Table Tennis to your friends and family? And they answer that, majority are, 9 out of 10, they're answering that question. So still a lot of work to do, but we're happy with the progress.
It's a really, really good sentiment to end on about not having a peak. I definitely agree with that. And certainly, I think everyone's enjoyed the journey for season one. Very much looking forward to season two. And yeah, thanks very much, Flint. I mean, we've talked about Major League a lot, but definitely was looking forward to having you on the podcast and sharing it with everyone else as well.
Well, I'm truly grateful and appreciative for those people who are on the journey with me. Like the fact that you've chosen to spend your time as a commentator in our league and feeding me lots of good ideas and being supportive, one of the more positive people in table tennis, that has helped me a lot. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Flint.